De América Latina vamos a hablar de la guerra más centimetrada, Rusia, Ucrania, los 3 años de esta guerra y una búsqueda intensa de un acuerdo de paz. Un acuerdo de paz en el que Estados Unidos está de por medio. De hecho, mañana se sostendrá una importante llamada telefónica entre Trump y el presidente Putin. Y vamos a conversar en el marco de esta situación, de la tensión que se vivió en la Casa Blanca hace unos días con Ucrania, con un periodista de la cadena Newsmax. Él es Alex Salvi. Recientemente acaba de llegar de Ucrania y nos cuenta todos los detalles. Lo hará en inglés, posteriormente hago la traducción. Alex Salvi, welcome to the News to Latin America. My name is Andy, and I know that you have recently to Ukraine. So you experienced the first-hand aftermath of this 3-year-old war. What can you share with us?
Yeah, Andres, I was there just last month, and I can tell you that when I was in Kyiv for that entire 2-week period, every single night, Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, did come underneath drone attacks from Russia. Every single one of those nights, there were air defense systems, Ukrainian air defenses still trying to shoot down those drones. There were ballistic missile attacks in other parts of the country. Keep in mind, this was all taking place while the U.S. Trump envoy Keith Kellogg was visiting the country. So even though the U.S. was pushing the diplomatic talks in Ukraine, the war continued. There were still talks ongoing as to what this meant for Russia. Of course, the Trump administration trying to push for that 30-day ceasefire as of right now. The Trump administration, with President Trump leading the charge, really trying to get Russia now to come to the table after that very contentious Oval Office meeting that he had with Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. He's now pivoting away from Ukraine and putting a lot of the onus on Russia.
Alex, give me one sec. I'm going to put all this into Spanish to my audience. Le preguntaba, le decía, hace unos pocos tiempos, él dice, hace un mes llegué de Ucrania, vivió en primera mano lo que se ha vivido en este país en medio de la guerra. Me dice, efectivamente, Andrés, todo el tiempo que estuve allí, vi cómo eran los ataques, estos misiles que no descansaban noche a noche y, por supuesto, se da en una línea donde un Donald Trump que quiere tratar de poner sobre la mesa al presidente de Rusia para un acuerdo de paz. Estamos hablando del tercer día de un cese al fuego y la importante reunión que vamos a ver mañana. Alex, I want to talk about how this war impacted in the daily life of Ukrainians. How do you see that in every single day of their lives?
Well, keep in mind that most of the actual fighting takes place in the 20% eastern part of Ukraine. That's where most of the hostilities are, but it's affecting the rest of the country as well. I mean, there is now young men between the ages of 25 all the way up to 50 that I've heard that are being drafted to the front lines in order to keep Russia really where it is. For the most part, over the past couple of months, the front lines have really been at a standstill. However, we have seen a little bit more of a change over recent weeks. Russia, for example, is starting to make some headway as it moves more west into Ukraine. We know that Ukrainian forces are beginning to withdraw from the Russian territory of Kursk. That was where they made their first incursion into Russia. That was supposed to be a big part of negotiations, but now Ukrainian forces are starting to feel the pain a little bit. And for the rest of the country, this is very much so an entire country at war, not just the eastern parts.
Alex, give me one sec again. Le preguntaba cómo esta guerra ha impactado en el día a día de los ucranianos. Y él me decía, Andrés, si bien la guerra se está llevando más a la parte del este, es decir, que no afecta o afecta a una parte del territorio donde se están llevando estas hostilidades, este desencuentro entre Rusia y Ucrania. Dice, esto afecta al resto de la nación. Desde el que tiene 18 años hasta el que tiene 95 años se ven afectados en su día a día cruzando las líneas de enfrentamiento. Y ahora, por supuesto, vamos a hablar de lo que será esta importante reunión de mañana. Alex, tomorrow we are all expecting a phone call. Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, to move on in this ceasefire, in this agreement of full peace. What are we expecting to happen tomorrow? What are we expecting to be talked about tomorrow?
Yeah, well, both sides have confirmed that conversation will be taking place. President Trump, as well as the Kremlin, both confirming it. President Trump saying that land concessions and power plants are on the agenda. The president telling reporters that on Air Force One, saying that he hopes and is hopeful that there will be an end to the war. Now, when it comes to the land concessions, that is something that has been discussed for a long time. The land that Russia has taken up to this point, what Ukraine is willing to give up in order to bring an end to the hostilities. Interestingly enough, the power plants thing that he brought up, that likely refers to the Zaporizhzhia power plant. That's a region that remains under bombardment by both sides. It's currently under Russian control as of right now, but there are concerns that if this fighting continues, eventually there could be something that goes wrong at that power plant that goes well beyond Ukraine. I mean, we don't have to go far back in history to know what happened at Chernobyl. There are fears that if this fighting continues, particularly in Zaporizhzhia, there could be a catastrophe that goes well beyond the Ukrainian border.
Bien, Alex, le preguntaba, le decía, mañana una importante llamada entre el presidente de los Estados Unidos, Donald Trump, y el presidente de Rusia. Le digo, ¿qué se va a conversar en esta llamada telefónica? Y dijo, sobre la agenda de conversación se encuentra lo que es la concesión de tierras. Hoy, que están bajo el control del presidente de Rusia en medio de estas confrontaciones, esto va a ser parte de la conversación, es decir, porque Ucrania no está completamente satisfecha de esta propuesta, pero es el paso que se tiene que dar para poder llegar a ese acuerdo. También dijo que tiene que ver con las plantas nucleares, tratar de evitar que algo suceda peor, inimaginable, algo como Chernóbil, por ejemplo, es una preocupación en la parte del sistema nuclear en esta negociación. Así que estaremos muy atentos a lo que sea esta conversación mañana y los detalles, por supuesto, en esta misma señal. Alex, we will be expecting everything in that important conversation between Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin. Can you please tell me how you saw the humanitarian situation for Ukrainians there? Do you believe that they got all the help that when they were in need? I mean, all aid help? How did you see the reality?
Well, the Ukrainians will say no, they did not get the help that they needed. And in fact, they'll even admit that the United States, even though it is the largest partner when it comes to economic and military aid, they will criticize the Biden administration for saying that it came too late, that perhaps they were slow walking it at the very beginning in fear that Russia would then escalate the war. Now, of course, we know that President Trump is adding more pressure on Ukraine as well. They're very critical of that. They see this as a fight that they are willing to fight for the long haul. That is something that maybe Ukrainians feel a little bit differently than Americans. Americans largely want to bring an end to this war. Ukrainians also want to bring an end to this war, but they want to do it on the right terms. And right now, they say that any land concessions, that's something that's said by President Vladimir Zelensky, isn't something that's on the table. They say that they're going into this very much so hard-nosed, saying that we are prepared to fight. We are prepared to kind of continue this war if it means that we later have better terms. Now, Russia says that there are terms that they have, such as no NATO, the demilitarization of Ukraine, acknowledging that those lands are Russian. So there are very much so tensions when it comes to these two type of dynamics. And that is what these two sides are going to try to be figuring it out.
Bien, le pregunté en un principio cómo es la situación humanitaria, si los ucranianos están recibiendo las ayudas que corresponden a estas personas que así lo necesitan. Me dijo, no, para nada, no hay esa ayuda y de hecho se hace una crítica a lo que era la gestión del exmandatario estadounidense Biden porque estas ayudas llegaban de manera tardía. Ahora, lo que se espera en este momento es en la conversación de mañana, dice, donde Ucrania está en descontento por las condiciones que Rusia está pidiendo. Por ejemplo, la aceptación de los territorios que ya están bajo el poder y el dominio de Rusia en medio de esta guerra que lleva 3 años. También las condiciones que el mismo Putin ha pedido. Por ejemplo, no OTAN, es decir, evitar, prohibir el ingreso de Ucrania a la Organización del Tratado del Atlántico Norte. Esto también está sobre la mesa y esto genera muchísima tensión entre Ucrania y Rusia, que ha sido, por supuesto, el meollo de esta guerra que, reitero, ha cumplido sus 3 años. Alex Salvi, thank you for showing us the piece of reality of what's happening, what's going on in Ukraine. We will be expecting everything to happen tomorrow in that phone call, and we want this to be end too.
Yeah, thank you, Andres. This is going to be a big day tomorrow for sure.